It is 4th of July weekend, and I'm out on Lake Winnipesaukee because the vertical jig bite for lake trout is starting to heat up, and I'm going to come out here and take advantage of it. But I wanted to shed a little light on the age-old question of which is better, spinning or baitcast setup. Alright, so today I have with me, this is a Daiwa Kage rod and reel. This is a 7'2" medium heavy fast action shaky head rod. It's got a really nice action and a really good backbone. It's a really good vertical jigging rod, and I have it paired up with a Kage 2500 spinning reel. My baitcast setup it's a Daiwa Proteus. This is the SS, the super slim jigging rod. This is a 6'4" medium. This rod is really thin, but it is designed for a jig up to 120 grams, which is around 5 ounces, which is really nice. And this is a Lexa HD. This is the 300. And both setups have 30-pound braid with 15-pound fluorocarbon leader, which is a little heavy for here, but they're all set up for stripers, and I'm going to be striper fishing again soon, so I'm just going to leave the 15-pound leaders. I know they'll catch fish, and both setups will have Daddy Mac lures, my signature series Nervous Minnow, 1.4 ounce. So very similar line, lure, leader, so sink rates should be pretty much the same, and we can compare which ones sink better, because for years I've said to people that bait casters are great, but you'll never sink as fast as a free-falling spinning setup. So we'll see if that's true. I'll try both setups and see if I can't even catch a fish in the process. So I'm going to compare things like sink rate and functionability and talk a little bit about why I like one versus the other. So let's get started with the bait caster. I'm in 106 feet of water. I got fish down there around 95 feet. And so I'm going to count down to see how fast this one will fall. I'm going to open the spool adjustment up so it's pretty much opened all the way, and then we'll count it down into 105 feet of water. So there's 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000, 5 1000, 6 1000, 7 1000, 8 1000, 9 1000, 10 1000, 11 1000, 12 1000, 13 1000, 14 1000, 15 1000, 16 1000, 17 1000, 18 1000, 19 1000, 20 1000, 21 1000, 22 1000, 23 1000, 24 1000, 25 1000, 20. So we'll call it 25 1000. I'm going to jig for a few minutes here. So there are a lot of reasons that one of these setups might be better than the other. For vertical jigging, a lot of people like a conventional or a bait cast setup because it's more like a winch to really crank those fish up if you're fishing in deep water. Now this setup here is really designed for jigging. They were thinking fluke and sea bass, black sea bass and tautog and even striped bass when they designed this SS rod. So it's a 1.4 ounce jig on here, and it barely loads this rod up at all. Really nice, but there's still plenty of flex, and it's super sensitive. I really love this rod. This reel has a power handle. I know a lot of people like to fish with a left hand bait caster because it's more natural if you fish with a right hand spinning reel to reel with your left hand. For me, it's just still awkward. Something about it is just still kind of weird, the way that I'm holding the rod and where the reel is in relation to my right hand. It's just a little awkward. I have a left hand bait caster, and I just fouled my jig. There we go. Get some lookers. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about vertical jigging technique right now for lake trout. This is about whether or not the bait caster is better than the spinning rod and reel setup. And I just I'd like to get a fish on each at least. We'll see how that plays out. There we go. Hit it on the drop. See, now there's one of the drawbacks a lot of people don't like about fishing with a bait caster is switching hands. which is why a lot of people, especially kayakers, will switch to, they'll use a left-hand retrieve so they can reel it with their left hand, which makes perfect sense. For me, it's just really awkward, and I just would rather switch hands or just jig with my left hand. If I'm casting with a bait caster, obviously I'm retrieving it with my right hand, so I will just work the bait. There we go, that fish just burped. Wow, it's might be a little bit better fish than I realized. Get my net ready. Yeah, this isn't no slouch here. It's a little tricky with this rod because it's new and I'm not as familiar. All those bubbles coming up, he's burping out. So one thing with these lake trout is we have to reel them in really slow because they're down there at over 100 feet. That's an average lake trout for Lake Winnipesaukee. Not too shabby. Give you guys a good look at it here. That's that nervous minnow. Works. Really effective lake trout lure. So there he is. I'm gonna get a picture and get him back in the water. So obviously, you know, this is a much more natural, it feels a lot more natural in a lot of ways because I've fished with a spinning rod and reel setup my entire life. So this feels more natural in a lot of situations. Some of the situations where one might be better than another, if I were doing more casting, I might want to use the spinning rod setup, but it really depends. I mean, some people like to cast with a bait caster. Bait caster is more like a winch, so if you really want to fish in bigger baits or bigger fish or vertical jigging and you really need to winch those fish up, or you want that really extra sensitivity, then I suggest a bait caster. Another time when a bait caster comes in really handy is kayak fishing, vertical jigging in a kayak, because if I'm sitting down and this reel is hanging down below the rod, it's on my lap and I have to hold my arms up. With a bait caster, it allows me to hold that rod lower in my lap because the reel is on top of the rod, so I don't have to hold it up as high. At the end of the day, it makes a huge difference on my shoulders and how tired and fatigued I get throughout the course of the day if I'm out, especially on a long day. In other instances, if I'm doing a more of a finesse type of fishing with lighter lures, working them really slowly, walleye fishing is a perfect example. I'd far prefer a spinning rod and reel setup over a bait caster. It allows me to slowly really finesse that lure in and still have good sensitivity and good hookup ratio. You know, it's easier for me and more intuitive to run a spinning rod setup than it is for to run a bait caster when I'm finesse jigging or finesse casting at fish or pitching for walleyes, things like that. A lot of it comes down to personal preference. Some people like bait casters better than spinning rods. Maybe that's what they learned on, and other people like spinning rods better than bait casters. I haven't ever fished bait casters very much until the last year or two because I just never became very accustomed to them. I'm not a big bass fisherman, so I never had as much of a reason, but I'm starting to really tailor my setups to the type of fishing that I'm doing, and I find that the bait caster is a go-to option for me, especially vertical jigging. I'm becoming a big fan of running a bait caster vertical jigging, and especially in my kayak. Here we go. It's about the same size fish, I think. So barotrauma is a big issue with lake trout fishing in deep water. This fish is down 105 feet of water, and as you reel them up, their swim bladder expands with the gases expand. So you have to bring them up super, super slow. If you listen to the fish, you'll know that you're bringing them up at the right speed. This fish is fighting pretty hard. It's a pretty steady fight. If it were to stop fighting like that, then I would stop reeling and give it a chance to burp, because lake trout are one of the few freshwater fish that can burp air out of their swim bladder. This is actually a nice fish. So he's not fighting. He's got some fight to him. He's swimming. So I'm gonna bring him up nice and slow. Give it a chance for those gases to burp out. It's nice and calm, so you should see the bubbles rising at some point as it burps. See how it's kind of stopped fighting. I'm going to just keep tension on the line and be ready, because when they burp, they start to fight really, really hard. This fish is just swimming around down there. And when they do burp and they start to fight, they can throw the jig, so you want to be able to reel down on them and keep that line really tight, because they throw their head around pretty ruthlessly, and they'll throw a jig out of their mouth pretty quickly. This fish seems to be doing pretty well. It's swimming around. It's not fighting real hard, but it's not coming up real easy either. And if you reel these fish up too fast, they will. This is a nice fish. I have plenty of beef on my line. See, he just burped again. This is a nice fish. I don't want to pull the hook though. You reel them up too fast, their swim bladder will actually burst, and then they'll never go back down. And while it's fun to watch the eagle swoop down and grab a fish, it's not fun to know that that fish died because I was careless. So take your time, reel them up really slow. The fish has kind of stopped fighting. I'm going to give it a chance to burp. Here, see all the bubbles? Fish is right down here. There's some bubbles there. Give him a chance to burp. There he is. And he burped again. More bubbles. This is decent fish. It's not huge, but respectable. Fun. Pretty nice. Nice. Yeah, it's a nice fish. It's actually a really nice fish. Probably 4 or 5 pound fish. Nine times out of 10, that jig will just fall out of their mouth. But this one hit it on the way up, so we didn't get it down deep, which is nice. I'm gonna get a picture. Get it back in the water. Alright, let's see if we can get him to go back down. It's nice and cool down there in that cool water. Another reason later on in the summer you bring these fish up, you want to bring them up nice and slow, because this water gets really warm on the surface. And coming out of that 50-55 degree water, up into almost 80 degrees, you really gotta give them a chance to acclimate. Coming around. There it goes. Well, did I answer your question? Which one is better, a bait caster or a spinning setup? I don't know. I think the real answer to that is mostly whatever is better for you, whichever one you like the most. Now, certainly there are going to be situations where, by definition, a bait caster is designed for some situations more so than others, and a spinning rod will be better suited for other applications than others. But really, it all comes down to personal preference. I have fished with spinning rod and reel setups for my entire life. The majority of fish I've caught have been on spinning rods. Would I have caught more? I don't know. It doesn't really matter because I've had a lot of fun fishing, and I'm having a lot of fun making the switch to incorporate more bait casters into my arsenal and seeing how that can help. I'd say carry both, but fish with the one that you like the best. And I don't know what else to say. I'm sure there are people out there that are thinking of all the things I forgot or that I think I didn't mention. There's a lot to it. There are a lot of answers to the question which one is better, and I'm not really here to speak for anybody other than myself. I prefer them both. It depends on the situation. I'm out here to have fun, and I'm having a lot of fun with the baitcaster. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Give it a thumbs up if you liked the video, and don't forget to hit that notification bell, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks.